Euphoria, presented by EB Games and Jeep.
Oh, let me fix that. Okay. Just spending a whole week with friends playing as many demos as we can and sharing them through word of mouth is an incredibly fun experience for me. I've never been to any big gaming expos ever, so replicating the same feel in your home is honestly a genius way of marketing games. Too bad that I was off on holiday for 5 days. I've been doing nothing but playing as many demos as I possibly could for the last 2 days, since this was the first time that I actually have an audience that I can show these games to. This video is probably going to be released a couple days after Next Fest, so some of the demos shown here won't be playable, but if you can and the game seems interesting to you, then I highly recommend you check them out, cause I haven't played a single one that seemed bad or boring. I hope by the end of this video you will have a couple games you've never heard of under your radar. And without wasting any more time, let's go through them. First and fistmost. The first demo I played was called Captain Vane. It looked like a fine throwback retro shooter made in a modified version of the original Doom engine, GZ Doom. I was expecting a simple Doom clone with visuals inspired by 90s Sunday morning cartoons. What I actually got was one of the fastest paced shooters I've played this year. You play as Captain Vane, the most assest of bads on the 7th sea. A rival gang called the Killer Whales has stolen all your shit, so they must pay. The game opens with a tutorial level that hammers a single thing into your head. Always keep moving. The most basic of these shrimp-faced grunts can take you out in 3 or 4 hits, and there's almost always half a dozen enemies on your screen at all time. Vane is armed with his trusty arm, capable of turning into a bunch of weapons and a great fisting tool too. All of these have alternative fires and just look and sound great. You're also given a kick that is way less wimpier than Duke's, and you can also just fly with it, cause probably some old sailor technique I didn't know about. You also overheal by any food or drink you pick up, so you are really encouraged to run around the map. The levels and the enemies all look gorgeous and have really neat gimmicks. Boxer guys will block out your machine gun shots, so you need to hit them with one big shot or just kick them to the ground. These flying bastards are incredibly annoying until you realize the more you hit them, the more they fall to the ground. There is also this old diver suit enemy that rushes you down while screaming, which might be a reference to the Alpha series enemies from Bioshock 2, and you don't know how happy that makes me. Captain Vane is in the same vein as something like Dusk or a Medieval, where the developer clearly knows what made old shooters great and just trims down the fat, only leaving the best parts of them left. Which is a really big compliment to a demo that is one level and one endless mode. If you love some boom shoots, I recommend keeping your eyes on this one. It has my highest rating for these demos, which is good!
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
See ya.
Okay, so I'm not exaggerating. This is currently one of my favorite VR games ever made. In Davigo, you play as one of 4 knights, whose job is to kill the giant. The giant is played by one guy wearing VR glasses. That's it. Thank you for watching this episode of Game Maker's Toolkit. Huge thank you to my 800,000 Patreon members. It is the best VR party game I've ever seen.
Vet du fogni?
Meg hogy...
The knights are equipped with grappling hooks, hammers and rockets, all weapons used for breaking the giant's armor and deflecting its attacks. Meanwhile, the giant too has a bunch of attacks and abilities, and all of them control insanely intuitively.
Egyébként vége.
Ow.
The most basicest interaction in VR is moving your head and hands around. Making the giant's moveset just that is just really clever. I won't lie, one of the reasons I'm making this video is just to show this game and show clips of it. We had a blast playing this demo with friends.
Visszajövök! Franc! Mész tovább!
Jó! Pont kitépi!
Eltűnt!
Mekkora itt volt!
Ó Jézus!
Milyen epic harc megy itt, te hallod? Jézusom!
Mi a fasz?
Ne!
Jó!
Ó, baszki! Ne!
Ne!
Ó, annyi volt!
És csak egy hátradom, így ennyi kész.
Mi?
Mérélek! Mérélek! Mi van?
Hol volt az egyik kezem? Ja, itt van. Hé, kapd el a haverod!
Hagyd békén a testemet, légy szíves! Ó!
I have no clue why there aren't more games that involve just one player in VR and everyone else on regular computers, since VR is still a pretty fringe and expensive piece of hardware. So, yeah. Until this becomes its own genre, Davigo looks like the most promising cross-platform multiplayer VR experience I've played. I really can't wait for the game's release and for the fucking community map support. Please, someone, make a Shadow of the Colossus level. Please, I will give you my son now. And now for the most unique game I've played this fest. In TOBOR, you are TOBOR, a robot made from the Raw Corporation. Your job is to spy on the residents of the Undercroft, a place that, even after playing through the demo 3 times, I don't know what it actually is. Is this underground fortress made for this isolated community of loathsome psychopathic villains? Pathetic and loathsome are the 2 keywords I would describe this whole place. The entire Undercroft is just this mishmash of steel and pipes. Even the rooms where the main subjects spend most of their time look really bleak. The only minions they have are these worm creatures and small robots. You even find out that the human-looking background characters are just artificially born clones. You really want to look away, but it is your job to follow and spy on everyone. At the beginning of the day, you need to select which subject you want to follow, and then tapping in on the important things they say and collecting evidence about them. You must fill out questionnaires using the relevant info you gathered and then getting a rating based on that. The demo lasts 2 days and it's really good. It's reminiscent of those early 90s interactive movie FMV games, especially Night Trap with its CCTV camera based gameplay. But instead of having cheesy and over-the-top acting, TOBOR has some grade A absurdist, depressive industrial horror vibes. My biggest and only gripe with the game is all the useless junk info you collect. When I said that you choose your target for the day, I really mean it. Any and all info or objects you collect that don't connect to them in some way are completely useless for your investigation, which would be fine if you really want to learn about what's happening. But every side info you collect is also listed at the end of questionnaires, which makes them worse than if they did nothing.
This is worthless. It's less than worthless, my boy.
I would love it if the side info you collect would be marked, or better yet, make a separate lore book. Have a diary where every info and item you collect will be listed and can be read. This one change would really give a reason to keep poking around when the player has time for it, and not just laser focusing on their subject. Aside from that, I'm really keeping my eye on this game and would highly recommend it. It's good. Now for something I didn't like that much. Taglines seemed like a perfect fit for me. A first-person platformer all about using dual-wield weapons as a means of traversal, all set in this Y2K-ish urban art style city, with characters that remind me of those Go-Go's toys I used to have as a kid. This is exactly something I never knew I needed, but I must play it now, and I didn't like it. I really wanted to love this game, and I still really like it on a visual level, but the movement... So I'd like to demonstrate my problem with a comparison. Why does this sound so official? Your Honor, Neon White.
You're so lucky you don't have big boobs, White. They get it the worst.
Neon White is also an FPS platformer with jumping and abilities as its main focus. The movement is really tight and almost feels like friction is not only in your leg, but in your ass. The moment you stop pushing the button, you stop moving, even in the air, giving you a perfect air mobility to do some sick stuff. In Tagline, your max speed is so freaking fast, if you trip, you can almost break the sound barrier. Thankfully, similar to Neon White, you stop dead in your tracks as soon as you release the button. But the moment you jump, you are going to finish that jump. So you would think that the levels are going to be massive jungle gyms with tons of room. No, they aren't. Aside from a couple of rooftops, most of the level is made of medium-sized plains with barely any ledge railings. The critical velocity you have and the really loose air control results in the fact that your abilities are less like additions and more like crutches. The platform firing purple finger thingy looked like the most interesting to me. Then in the game, it's probably the most useless one. The platforms are really small compared to how fast you move, and even the momentum of your jumps are capable of pushing you off just by hitting the damn wall. I know it's just a demo, but demos exist to give first impressions. Mine was an art style that looks really cool and a platformer with a really bad movement. It's alright, I guess. From the creator of that card FPS that released like a month ago, comes Laika, Aged Through Blood. It is... how do I put it? In Laika, you play as Laika, a mom who lives in this apocalyptic Mad Max world. You also have a bike and a gun, and you can block bullets with your bike and deflect them, and also slow down time. And to reload these, you need to do front and back flips. This is the best Trials game never made by Ubisoft. The game is a Metroidvania all about doing tricks, killing enemies and gathering stuff for upgrades. The idea of putting the whole thing on a motorbike is already really interesting, but what sold this game for me was the visuals and the story. The game has this great color palette, sneaking in browns and red tones to make things pop, with the light grey background, giving it this desolate feel and making it memorable whenever a new color appears. Even in the more friendly looking vistas, you get the feeling of the land drying in the sun. A detail I loved is that the blood of the birds you kill can splash on Laika, which is something more games need to do. Also, the story itself is pretty interesting. Laika lives in this village of survivors trying to get along in this dying world, while trying to keep their culture and traditions. She also has a daughter named Pup, which is just really funny to me. It's like naming your son a boy. Easily gets my highest recommendation. If you're only going to play one demo from this video, it should be this. Thronefall is a really simple top-down strategy game inspired by games like Kingdom and Pikmin. Your objective is to defend your castle center from waves of invaders attacking each night. Every day you get coins to invest in your economy to get more coins next turn, or invest in your defenses to live until the next turn. What makes this a bit different from Kingdom is that your character, the little king dude, is also an active combatant. The king auto-attacks and has a special ability, but more importantly he can just die. At the beginning of each level you can choose your king's weapons, special perks and mutators. This and the fact that the buildings can be upgraded to branching different versions gives it incredibly good replay value, and I can see myself spending hours and hours with this game. It's good. This year's Next Fest really made me realize something. We live in a post-Vampire Survivors world. This one game made by one guy who worked in the slot machine business has cracked the code on how to make a good, addictive gameplay loop in the least amount of steps. This has opened the floodgates for indie devs trying to make a game that plays itself. I can't blame them, the formula works, and as it turns out, it's really malleable to any genre. The first one of these I played was Spellshot, a combination of Vampire Survivals, Call of Duty Zombies, and Super Auto Pets of all things. At the end of each wave you can buy new bullets that you can put into your magazine. These can level up, have different effects and synergies with the ones of the same type. After certain rounds you also get permanent character boosts that are really useful. To upgrade what kinds of bullets you get in the shop, you need to find crystals that are scattered throughout the level. I watched the devlog of the creators of this game and I'm really looking forward to how they will continue to iterate on this idea, cause there's a lot of potential here. It's good. Within a Dead City also takes the self-playing angle of Vampire Survivors and puts it in a strategy game. In this game, you are the leader of an adventurers guild in a dangerous, rundown city. You will need to hire adventurers, set up buildings and use spells to clear out the level. Your adventurers will act on their own, and if you want them to survive, you'll need to sell them better gear and potions. The visuals are simplistic, but I kind of like this monochrome mixed media art style. Out of all the demos from this segment, this is the one that seems the most like a fully fleshed out game that I can recommend to people. It's good. To me, the most interesting of these demos was Heretic's fork. Here you are a demon working for Hell. Your job is to stop the souls of the damned from escaping. For this you have cards that build towers with different types of elements. You can also combine your cards and towers to make them more powerful. One thing I found out that I'm still not really sure if it's intentional or not is that you can put two cards into your combining slot and just not combine them. Then at the end of your turn, you won't discard them and you can just use them without a problem. Overall, this is a Survivors clone that didn't really click with me. It tries to be the mashup of 3 different genres and not really giving much depth to any of them. What did click with me was everything else. The main menu being a satanic desktop of an office computer, the really gorgeous pixel art and the emails you get from the other demons made me want to see more of it, and also more of the Dark Sims score. That just fucks. The clone that hooked me the most was fucking Soul Dog. It's another tower defense game that plays itself, but instead of playing cards to upgrade them, you need to turn them on and off. Enemies come in a straight line and drop souls that levels us up. The only way to collect them is by sending out Soul Dog TM, during which all towers turn off. The game is a pretty stressful micromanaging balancing act, prioritizing which turrets to turn off and when to send in Soul Dog, Enemies also come with different effects to mix up your anxiety. I also kinda like that the UI is similar to modern JRPGs with this clean, simplistic look. Soldog is definitely worth a try and would be my go-to time waster. It's good! The indie and AA scene is a place of budding talent that we need more than ever, as the big names of the industry are getting less and less subtle with showing their naked greed. I hope you learned about a couple games that you haven't already, since this is the least I can do to support these games and its developers. Also, I don't know how to write a good epilogue, so yeah, like and subscribe, Woo!